Found out my father, M50, was dating my eldest cousin, F36, 2 years after my mother's passing 9 years ago. My mother lost her life to bone cancer, and although she was resuscitated, she was in a vegetative state, and it was left up to me on whether or not we were to pull the plug. I chose to end her suffering, and that will always be the most traumatic experience of my life. I watched my dad be a complete mess for 2 years, messing around with multiple women, having relations outside, keeping his head up through his short-term flings when they didn't work out, to literally dragging him to bed and making sure he got up in the morning for work after these long nights with random women. I knew about every single date or female he was talking to before the rest of my siblings, because he developed a trust in me seeing I had his back through this hardship. But the one that slipped under the cracks I didn't even see coming. I noticed my out cousin, she'll go by Tiffany for this story, was getting awfully friendly around my pops, and at first I thought she was just trying to suck up to him for a couple dollars towards her next illegal substance fix. But she was a lot more touchier than usual. She was smiling a lot, and it gave off a seductive intent. I had a feeling in my gut, and of course, like we all do usually, I ignored and denied it. Days came and went, then things started becoming almost blatant. Tiffany started wearing my dad's hoodies, was living in our house, they had inside jokes, they were going places together, she was getting gifts regularly, and she living off of his dime. I stupidly tried to find a reason to think otherwise, because my father never was this desperate, and I seen him in a light that wouldn't slightly convey he would commit these kind of actions. I respected and looked up to him so much that he could never do wrong in my eyes until that fateful day. It was the 4th of July, and my dad would have get-togethers in our house for a few holidays out the year. This celebration was a very lively one. A lot of family showed up, and my father's house is very small with a patch of grass for a yard, so it was crowded from inside and out. I was smoking with my siblings, then suddenly I peeped my pops and Tiffany were glued to the hip by the front door for like 25 to 30 minutes. I couldn't help but to go distract myself with some pool in the basement, so I went ahead and did so, before I would have let my thoughts at the time get the best of me. I resided down there for a bit to get right and keep a face on, knowing I'm truly concerned with what's going on behind closed doors with my family. I went back up and seen they were gone, so I asked my sister where they went off to. She said the last I saw of them too was them driving off to the liquor store up the street. My uncle, who was living with us at the time, asked me for something, went in the back to get the things needed for the job, so to speak. When I got back there, I was hearing distinct noises coming from my father's room, but thought it was an adult movie. I questioned that though, because why would he do that with a house full of guests here? It was breezy out that night, so if doors weren't all the way closed in the house and windows were open, then doors would fly open, so the door came open enough for me to get a small gander of what was going on, and I seen my father receiving oral services from my cousin. They were extremely under the influence and wasn't paying any mind to the door being cracked open, while my cousin just disgustingly making a mess of herself. I was pissed beyond belief. That's the same bed my parents shared all the years we lived in that house as a family, and I just witnessed the most vile act unfold in that very same bedroom. I mindlessly slammed the door shut to scare the piss out of them, and it worked as the gagging and gargling stopped immediately. I walked away looking at my dad in a totally different way at that point. It was the first time where my positive image of my dad was tainted, and it was of a hell of a stain. A couple weeks later, my uncle started seeing the strange companionship they had, and he began to have a closer eye on them from there on out. He gathered that after seeing my pops and Tiffany were matching clothes just to go bowling with her friends. I knew of their secret, but I felt I had no one to talk about it with, cause I knew that information like this would cause chaos that I wasn't sure I could handle, nor my siblings could handle, considering we were just starting to sorta getting through the grieving of our deceased mother. Another day passes, and now everyone is raising eyebrow at my dad after being seen at the mall by my great aunt and her daughter. The rumor spread like wildfire, and my siblings and uncle got wind of it. That day I was certain all hell was about break loose. Later on, my pops came home from work and my uncle was like, "Say, brother-in-law, let's rap for a minute," and my pops blurted out, "Let me explain." It was revealed that him and Tiffany were seeing each other secretly, despite it being disrespectfully obvious. My father served our country and experience in combat training, so he definitely could hold his own, but he dearly loved my uncle like a brother and felt shame in himself. Pride started getting the best of him and it was getting ugly fast. My dad offered my uncle to step outside at one point and it quickly turned into holding them back from each other. This all happened as the whole intermediate family was there and everything was out in the open now. I confronted my dad in front of everyone and explained what I witnessed a few weeks ago at the house party. It was like one of those movie scenes where you look at the world spiraling down before your eyes and you could visibly see in his face he felt defeated. The day after, my dad spent the next 6 months apologizing to us all for what he did, and I had resented him for a long time after that. As for my cousin Tiffany, nobody trusts her anymore and my dad cut things off with her after everything hit the fan. During this time, she tried to get through to me thinking I would be the same mild-mannered person I usually am, not expecting me to explicitly cuss her out to the high heavens over the phone. What was crazy to me was that she was always very family-oriented regardless of her addictions, and she was pretty well liked in the family as well. She was the niece of my mother, and she stooped that low to find a relationship with someone. I have since forgave my father and he went and sought out for help to better himself. I didn't do it 'cause I love my dad, 'cause I always will, but because I promised my mom I would always do my part to keep the family together. I never knew that it would come with challenges like that. I still sorta have a relationship with my dad and he thinks we are back to normal, but I still hold an hurt from what he did to our family. Love makes you endure some crazy stuff sometimes.